You think you know who you're talking to? The engineer snapped. The worker didn't flinch. He just looked him straight in the eye. What the engineer didn't know was that he had just sealed his own fate in front of everyone. I've worked in construction most of my life, seen good bosses, bad engineers, and everything in between. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened that week on the Charleston high-rise project. We were 3 weeks into a major development, an 18-story luxury tower overlooking the river. I was on crew with guys I trusted, but tensions had been high since the new site engineer showed up. His name? Bradley Kent. Fresh out of an Ivy League school, with a clipboard in one hand and ego in the other. The kind of guy who wore spotless boots just to check measurements and never lifted a single cinder block. And he made it real clear. He didn't respect anyone who hadn't graduated with honors like him. Enter DeShawn Miller. Tall, built like a tank, with hands rougher than sandpaper and eyes that had seen real struggle. DeShawn wasn't just another worker. He was the site supervisor for the labor crew, the guy who kept the real work running smoothly. Everyone respected him, everyone except Bradley. Bradley walked in Monday morning like he owned the site. He didn't even say hello. "Hey, you," he barked, pointing at DeShawn. "Why is the rebar stacked like that? You guys trying to get us fined?" DeShawn wiped sweat from his brow. "That's how we've stacked rebar for 10 years on city contracts, sir. The inspector signed off on it last week." Bradley scoffed. "Maybe in the hood they do that, but this is a professional site. Fix it, now." A chill fell across the crew. Nobody spoke. DeShawn's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. I remember thinking, Bradley had just stepped on a landmine. He didn't know who DeShawn really was, or the power he actually had. And that was just the beginning. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, like a live wire. After Bradley walked off, clipboard tucked under his arm like he was General Patton, we all looked at DeShawn. But DeShawn, he just smiled. "Let him keep digging," he muttered. "Man's building his own grave." Now here's what Bradley didn't know, and what made this whole thing so crazy. See, DeShawn Miller wasn't just a site supervisor. The man was also the executive construction liaison for the entire region. He had the final say on labor assignments, crew approvals, and worst of all, for Bradley, termination reviews. But he dressed like the rest of us, worked with us, ate lunch with us on overturned buckets. That's what made him different. That's why we respected him. But Bradley, he saw a black man in a vest and hard hat and made assumptions. Big ones. The next day, Bradley came storming in again. This time, he caught DeShawn going over blueprints with one of the junior architects. "Oh, look who's playing foreman now," Bradley sneered in front of the crew. "Hey, DeShawn, maybe stick to what you know, all right? We don't need your hood math messing up my build." The job site went silent. Even the jackhammers stopped. One of the welders, Big Mike, stood up like he was about to say something, but DeShawn raised a calm hand. "Nah," he said quietly. "Let him talk." Bradley smirked like he'd won something. Later that afternoon, Bradley called a crew meeting. He stood on the back of a flatbed, arms crossed, sunglasses on. "Just a reminder," he said loudly, "you all work under me. If I give a directive, I expect it done. No questions, no backtalk, especially from certain people who forget their place." "I swear to you," the man looked directly at DeShawn when he said that. Still, DeShawn said nothing, but he did pull out his phone. Just one message, one call, and that's when things started changing. The next day, corporate sent down a visitor, Mr. Elias Monroe, vice president of operations, suit, tie, no smile. And guess who he asked to meet? Not Bradley. He asked for DeShawn. Bradley's face? Priceless. You could practically see the confusion crawling up his neck. By Wednesday morning, whispers were flying across the job site like wildfire. Who's that guy in the black SUV? Why did Monroe fly down from corporate? Is DeShawn getting promoted? Or is someone about to get canned? I kept my mouth shut, but inside I already knew. Bradley was done. He just didn't know it yet. That morning, we all gathered around the main trailer for what was supposed to be a site status meeting. Only this one had everyone, from the welders to the architects, even the electricians. Something big was coming. Then out walked Mr. Elias Monroe. Sharp suit, polished shoes, cold eyes, and right behind him, DeShawn Miller, clipboard in hand, calm as ever. Bradley strutted up with his usual fake confidence, flashing a smile. "Good to see you, Mr. Monroe. Didn't know you were coming down. If you want, I can brief you." Monroe raised a hand. Cut him off mid-sentence. "No need, Bradley. I'm already briefed." The crowd shifted. You could feel it. The weight of authority in Monroe's voice. The kind that makes grown men nervous. "I've been reviewing incident reports, surveillance footage, and internal complaints over the past 4 days," Monroe said, his voice echoing off steel beams. "And it's become very clear that there's been a breakdown in leadership and respect." Bradley looked confused, nervous. "Wait, sir, I don't understand. If this is about the rebar—" "It's not," Monroe interrupted. "It's about you." The silence was deafening. DeShawn stepped forward for the first time. "You want to tell him, or should I?" he asked Monroe. Monroe gave a nod, and then it happened. DeShawn turned to Bradley and said, "Cool as the morning breeze." "You're fired," Bradley blinked, laughed nervously. "You can't fire me. I'm the lead engineer." "I'm your regional supervisor," DeShawn replied. "You've been working under me this entire time. I swear I've never seen a man's soul leave his body." But in that moment, Bradley looked like he'd swallowed glass. DeShawn continued, voice steady. "You disrespected me. You disrespected this crew. You judged based on skin, not skill. That's not just unprofessional, it's unacceptable." Chimed in. "And this company has zero tolerance for that. Your termination is effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." And just like that, Bradley was done. No speech, no redemption arc. Just a man who built himself up with arrogance and watched it all collapse, brick by brick. After Bradley was escorted off-site, nobody said a word for at least a full minute. Just the wind moving through the steel skeleton of that half-built tower and the sound of reality settling in. It wasn't every day that you saw someone like DeShawn, a man who'd worked his way up from carrying bricks to signing contracts, fire a man who'd spent his whole career looking down on people like us, and he did it without yelling, without threatening, just truth and authority. But here's what really shook us. DeShawn didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. After the meeting broke, he quietly picked up his tools and got back to work like nothing had happened. That's when I knew. We hadn't just lost a bad engineer. We had witnessed a lesson. That afternoon, I caught up with DeShawn by the generator shed. "Hey," I said, "why didn't you check him the first day? You could have crushed him." He looked up from the schematics he was reviewing. "Because I needed everyone to see him clearly first," he replied. "If I had snapped back, it would have turned into a shouting match. He'd still look like the boss in their eyes. But when people show you who they are, sometimes you gotta let them finish the whole sentence." He folded the blueprint and added, "Power doesn't mean yelling loudest. Sometimes it means knowing when to wait and knowing exactly when to speak." I'll never forget that. By the next morning, the entire crew worked differently. There was pride in every shovel, every weld, every measure. Like we'd all grown 6 inches taller overnight, DeShawn had flipped the power dynamic not by force, but with dignity. And now, we weren't just building a high-rise, we were building a legacy. A new engineer showed up later that week, a young Latina named Marisol Vega. First thing she did? Sit down with DeShawn, go over the project, and shake hands with every crew member. Bradley had been all titles and ego, but Vega, she was all team and vision. Funny how the right kind of leadership can turn a job site into a family. A month passed. The tower kept rising, one floor after another. The new engineer, Marisol, brought fresh ideas, respected experience, and worked side by side with DeShawn. Together, they turned what had been a tense, divided site into a machine that ran like clockwork. Everywhere you looked, morale was high. Guys who used to mumble through their shifts now walked with confidence. People stayed late without being asked. Even the lunch breaks had changed. Laughter, unity, no more side eyes or silent corners. One afternoon, we were up on the 15th floor, welding support beams, when I noticed something. DeShawn wasn't giving orders. He wasn't correcting people. He was just there, quietly checking levels, marking rebar, and occasionally nodding in approval. The man had earned the kind of respect that no title could command. I walked over, asked him straight up, "What now? You already proved your point. Why still out here with us?" He smiled. "Because this is where I started. And no matter what corner office they offer me, this," he waved at the beams, the cranes, the sky, "this is home." Then he looked over the city skyline and said something I'll never forget. "You can't change every arrogant man in the world, but you can show people what real strength looks like. It's not about shouting someone down. It's about standing up without needing to." That day, the final steel beam was hoisted into place. Marisol handed DeShawn a marker and asked him to sign it before it went up. He wrote, "Respect is earned in silence, proven in action. DeMilias." The beam was lifted. Every crew member looked up, smiling. We weren't just building a tower. We were living a story that would be told on this site for generations. Bradley Kent had come in thinking titles made him untouchable. But DeShawn Miller, he proved that character was louder than credentials. And when the dust finally settled, he didn't just build a skyscraper, he built a standard.